Hello my lovely people, I hope that you guys are doing well. This week the BBC released a drama that I don't think that I'm gonna watch. It might sound weird because of the nature of what I do here with the true crime and the murder tales, but there are certain things like specific stories that I can't bring myself with my heart to watch them. And that is when real events, specific events that have happened are dramatized. It's just too much for me. So Murdered by My Boyfriend, which was on the BBC a few years ago, Fruitvale Station with Michael B. Jordan, My Murder with John Boyega, Hotel Rwanda, things like this are super difficult. And Anthony, the story of Anthony Walker, who was killed this week in 2005 in an unprovoked racial attack in Merseyside in England, is one of those as well. I'm going to tell you the facts of this story, what happened on the night of July 29th, 15 years ago. And if you want to watch the drama, which was released earlier this week, and it showed what Anthony's life could have become, I will link it for you in the description box. But personally, even for research purposes, I'm opting out. Shwa-na-na-na, 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 shwa-na-na-na. Born in February of 1987, Anthony Walker was a black boy of Jamaican heritage and he grew up in Liverpool. He was one of a huge family. He had 5 siblings, and the family life in Liverpool in the 80s was difficult. His parents moved from one side of the city to the other because of racial abuse, and he suffered quite a bit of abuse in his school at Moseley High School as well throughout his teenage years. He loved basketball, he was super religious, he was Christian, committed to the church, and he was in the final year of his A-levels in 2005. He wanted to go to uni to study law. Just weeks before his death, he was actually racially attacked with a cricket bat, and he went to hospital. He didn't involve the police. His injuries were not that significant, and he didn't want to get the person who attacked him in trouble, just to show you what sort of guy that he was. On Friday the 29th of July, Anthony and his girlfriend Louise spent the evening at his family home babysitting his 2-year-old nephew. At around 11 p.m, Anthony and his cousin Marcus set off to walk Louise to the bus stop, which was next to the Houghton Park pub, where they encountered Michael Barton. Now, Michael Barton was a racist piece of shit. He was wearing like a black hoodie and a ski mask or a scarf that was covering his face. And the second he saw the young black boys, he started hurling racial abuse at them. Anthony walked away. And this is the moment, this is the thing that a lot of black people and people of colour fear. There have been times when I've been racially abused, when somebody, usually an old white drunk man, has said something to me, they've shouted something at me, they've used a racial slur, and I have walked off. I've walked away and I've not engaged in the conversation or the argument. I've tried to distance myself from the abuse. This is what I have drummed into my brother's brains, into my friends' brains, into my friends' cousins, children's brains. Walk away. This is what I teach my nieces and my nephews. Do not rise to it, just leave. And that is what Anthony, his cousin, and his girlfriend did. And that is when Michael Barton and his cousin, Paul Taylor, got into a car and drove round to where they would emerge. They hid in the bushes and waited to attack. They ambushed Anthony. Marcus and Louise managed to get away and they ran to get help, but it would be no use, because Paul Taylor got a mountaineering axe and he drove it into Anthony's head. I read that he did it with such force that it was embedded 6 centimeters into Anthony's skull. Paul Taylor and Michael Barton tried to retrieve the axe from Anthony's head and they couldn't. Even doctors at the hospital, they had such trouble getting the weapon out of Anthony's skull. And Anthony died at 5:25 a.m. on July 30th, 2005. He had been brain dead within seconds of the axe being swung, and he passed away with his family by his side. The Merseyside police immediately branded the murder as racist, and the hunt for Anthony's killers began. I say hunt, people in the local area knew exactly who had done it. Across the course of the next few days, the news of the murder spread throughout the country. I've read in so many places that people were absolutely shocked by this slaying, but in all honesty, I think shocked is probably the wrong word. Maybe shocked at the level of violence, maybe shocked that something that didn't need to happen happened so graphically, but racial abuse, racial attacks are not rare in this country. Anthony's family made public appeals and hundreds of mourners and well-wishers visited the site of the killing. And I've read quite a few of the notes that were left there as well, apologising for the behaviour of these two white thugs. Michael Barton and Paul Taylor fled the country very shortly after Anthony's murder. They drove to Dover, caught the ferry out of England and went to Amsterdam. The police made the very rare decision to name them as suspects in the crime. By now, it had emerged that Michael Barton was the brother of Manchester City footballer Joey Barton, and Paul Taylor was his cousin. As news of his brother made international headlines, Joey Barton made a televised appeal for him to return home. He was super careful to distance himself from his brother because although they did share parents, they grew up in separate homes. He said, "My side of the Barton family is sickened by his death, Anthony's death. Although I was not brought up with Michael, I urge him to come forward." It must have actually been super hard for Joey Barton, simply because, you can't control what your family does, but he was trying to help with the investigation. Thousands of people gathered at St George's Hall in Liverpool city centre for an anti-racism vigil. Anthony Walker's mother bravely spoke for the first time to address the crowd. It's so sad to watch, and if I can find the footage, I will link it in the description for you. But she's like shielding her eyes. Her eyes are tear swollen. She's got a pair of sunglasses, but she addresses the crowd I don't even want to call her strong, but it's just, she's determined to find the killers of her son. By the 3rd of August, 4 days after the attack, the murderers were back in England. They were arrested at Liverpool John Lennon Airport after getting off an EasyJet flight. There were rumours that they were apprehended in Amsterdam and forced to come back to the UK, but I wasn't able to find anything that solidified that or that confirmed that. And police said that they were arrested when they got back on British soil. In December of 2005, they were found guilty, and on the 5th of December, they were sentenced. Michael Barton, who was 17 at the time, who initiated the confrontation and supplied the axe, was sentenced to a minimum of 17 years and 8 months. Paul Taylor, who was 20, who delivered the fatal blow, was sentenced to a minimum of 23 years and 8 months. This story is, of course, so sad and so heartbreaking, and it's crazy because that's it, that's the information, that's what happened. There was no previous connection, there was nothing that linked Anthony to these thugs, to these murderers, but that's what they did. I wanted to try and end it on a little note of hope, if that's possible at all. The Anthony Walker Foundation was created in 2006, and it works to tackle racism, hate crime and discrimination by providing educational opportunities, victim support services and promoting equity and inclusion for all. In April of 2008, the Crown Prosecution Service announced a legal scholarship in Anthony Walker's memory. The scheme offers one place in CPS Merseyside to a trainee solicitor who wants to become a fully fledged solicitor or barrister. It's open to any black or ethnic minority person who has secured or intends to apply for a place to study full time. And that's because Anthony wanted to be a lawyer. If you want to watch Anthony, the drama that shows what his life could have become on the BBC, I've linked it and you can watch it on the iPlayer. Of course, I've put all of the links to my research, all the podcasts that I listened to in the description box as well. And yes, this one didn't have much room for quips and, little humorous parts, but nothing about it's funny. This happened in 2005 and racism is still very much prevalent in our society. All we can hope is that by telling the stories, people believe us, and in believing us, there can be change. I hope that you guys have a brilliant week. I will see you next week for another episode of The Anniversary with me, Yinka Bokinni, and I'll see you later.